Hey everyone, and welcome to the Future of Web3 podcast. My name is Aleck, and I'm joined by my colleague Eric, and we're going to spend the next few weeks, every week, focusing on a different topic in Web3, and we're really going to focus on how to implement Web3 technology into your business or whatever you're working on and whatever you're trying to grow. We want to harness this technology, we want to harness the capability, and find ways to help you use it to find growth and find success.
Now, Web3 is an emerging technology that encompasses all things blockchain related, as well as the metaverse. And I'm sure those things have been floated around your office and you've heard of those things a couple of times. We're going to dive deeper on what that actually means for your business.
A lot of businesses have a hard time finding a use case that's really practical for them. How do you actually take this technology and put it in a practical sense into play, and actually use it? So over the next few weeks, Eric and I are going to help walk you through a couple of use cases, a couple of things that are happening in the industry, and we're going to find ways for you to actually do that and really get a benefit from it right away.
So one of the things we found talking to our clients is that people are hesitant on adopting this new technology because it's very hard to find one Web3 business that's actually reliable and secure. And security is a big thing that's important to an enterprise. And Web3 in its decentralized nature, kind of hard to be secure when it's decentralized, isn't it, Aleck?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to think of this, and like we're trying to really position this from the perspective of, say, a chief financial or a chief information officer. It could be a chief financial officer, but really a chief information officer, a chief technology officer. It could be somebody who's investing in a business, could be the owner of a business. So really somebody who's a very high level stakeholder, and a stakeholder that has a lot on the line, either personally or through the business. So again, we're really trying to focus on a way to safely and securely use this technology.
So a little introduction about myself. I've been in enterprise sales for the last decade. In the last few years, I've specialized in manufacturing technology. So everything from the design process to more so now on this end, the machine monitoring side of things. Just seeing that the biggest hurdle that we're seeing now in manufacturing in North America is the human capital aspect. There's not as many skilled tradespeople going in there. So how you can leverage technology to overcome those barriers, and looking forward, how you can use Web3 technologies such as AI to bring that manufacturing process to the next level.
Similar to Eric, I have a pretty extensive background in consultative sales, largely in the manufacturing and industrial sector. But prior to that, I also have a lot of experience in the financial services industry. So working with Eric, I'm trying to bring a lot of that financial background and financial decision-making paired with the technology piece and try and bring it all together to help businesses make financially wise decisions and really leverage the technology with a business sense in mind, where you can actually generate a positive return and have the perspective of generating a positive return from that technology.
Now, Aleck and I are actually business partners, and we run a consulting firm called Web3 Innovations, where we help businesses on everything from the sales aspect to implementing the actual technology in Web3 into their business today.
We work really closely with a lot of venture capital firms. A lot of people in the industry are launching different types of projects and are trying to find ways to deploy the technology in a real sense. So we have a nice mix of all the pieces that you need to really have a deep grasp of the industry and actually take a product and put it into day-to-day operation in your company.
And with Web3 Innovations, it is very exciting to work with entrepreneurs like yourself that are on the cutting edge, looking to get that extra little step and that extra little edge against their competitors, and how they're finding they're doing that is leveraging new technologies. Even if it's in an exploratory stage, which a lot of our work is right now, is we're doing so many roadmaps right now on how we're actually going to implement the technology. And what we want to cover every week here is what we see going on in the market week by week, and how you as a CIO, CEO, CTO, or business owner, even manager or an employee, how you could actually implement these Web3 technologies into your business today. And not like we'll talk about in theory, but today, what you can actually do with this technology.
So, Eric, this is probably a good time. I'm sure some of the folks listening and watching right now are thinking, well, I'm a business owner. Web3, I've heard about it. Okay, why? So maybe, Eric, if you could kick us off, what do you like about Web3? What kind of drove you to it? Why have you started building a business around it?
I'm really drawn to the technology aspect of it. So everyone thinks Web3, or when I think of Web3, I think of two things. I think of blockchain or Bitcoin, as a lot of people do think. Like, I don't know why I did air quotes. Like, it is Bitcoin. Everyone thinks about Bitcoin when they think about Web3. Everyone thinks about metaverse, and especially when big companies jump on the train, like Meta now, or Facebook, as it was the company was formerly called, jumps on that train. It's just the next progression in the web interface. So Web 2.0 is what we're seeing right now with a lot of social media, e-commerce sites, a lot of data being held in certain silos. With Web3, it's more decentralized. So the ownership is pushed out onto the network, and everyone is in control of their own data. Or so that's where Web3 is hoping to go. How about yourself?
Yeah, the thing I found with Web3, like I'm thinking back to, I think it was like 2017 when we were first buying, Litecoin and Bitcoin and all these. And at the time, you thought, oh, this is just, it's we're used to buying penny stocks and things, right? So you look at it like, oh, it's a gamble. But as I started to learn a lot more over the years in the industrial sector, one of the big pushes that I saw is decentralization in terms of technological infrastructure. So an example would be, actually cloud is a great example of this, because really cloud is decentralizing, because you're taking what used to be a stack of servers you had sitting in your office, and you've now given that off to Google or an Amazon or whoever to manage that for you. And of course, when Google's doing it, they have your data stored in 3 or 4 different places. It's all over. So if they have a catastrophic event, you can still access it. No big deal. So they've created decentralization for you. And you see it in like technologies, like in, say, industrial and operational technology, decentralizing is a big thing. It's like, how do I make sure I always have the data coming off of this motor or this drive? How do I know that this data is always going to be there? It's like, well, store it locally and then back it up to a cloud, back it up to another. So then you look at what is Web3, and Web3, like by definition, is basically blockchain enabled technology. So it's decentralized data storage, it's decentralized transactions. So it's all the themes that have been bubbling up and, call it Web 2 or Industry 2.0. And it's all coming to fruition at a structural level with Web3. So it's a natural, it's everyone's moving this way, and for good reason, for security and safety and all those things. But that's the way the industry's been going for years. It's nothing new. This is the culmination of that.
Yeah, and it's taking things like smart contracts to the next level. And I know, like, we'll get into this on another episode, but like, smart contracts and the idea behind smart contracts, like the type of crypto coins that are out there, the technology behind it. Like, you don't have to think about crypto coins and meme coins or think of it as a financial tool at all. Look at the technology behind it, and it's just executing tasks based on a set of rules. That's not trusted by a third-party intermediary. It's trusted between two people using this one tool, and that's the smart contract. So as a business, if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. And you're taking that third party, such as an employee, out of that mix, and you don't have to worry about those errors to happen. Looking forward down the future, that unlimited possibilities to this into streamlining your administrative costs and your administrative processes in Web3. So that's what gets me really excited. Like, what gets you in there is the fast money, and like you see Bitcoin or you see Elon Musk talking about Dogecoin, and it shoots up 10,000%, and you get a 10,000% return. That's exciting in the short run. But like the technology behind a lot of these coins and DAOs and things like that, unbelievable.
So when you look at the last, like you said, the last 10 years, you've been in the industrial space. So with all that experience you've built up over the years, how do you find the Web3 interconnection into that? Or how do you find Web3 plays well with what you've been seeing on the plant floor across so many industries over the last 10 years?
The big thing that comes to my mind right away, and what I'm seeing right now when we're implementing machine monitoring systems, is traceability. Like you don't have that loss of paperwork, that loss of what employee had this type of training, what employee actually did this type of work, what materials were used here. All these things are stored on paper or on hard drives and can be lost. And depending on what type of industry, and you need to keep those records, could be indefinitely, depending on what type of infrastructure work you're doing. And things happen. With the blockchain and its decentralized nature, there's the opportunity to distribute those records while being secure, and we'll get into this more so, but while secure on the network, on the blockchain, where it is there in record form forever. And it's there for everyone to see, just streamlining that process. Now, trade secrets, you don't want everyone to see those types of trade secrets or anything like that, but you can make blockchains for your own private network. I know that sounds a little redundant, but we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think I have a whole lot to add to that. I mean, the case study I would see is I look at somebody who's say like a tier one automotive supplier, and so you have Stellantis or GM or Toyota breathing down your neck. Like you have to hit these quality metrics. You have to, deliver on these timelines. So there's a lot that you have to hold up to. So for a company like that, who's got who needs to prove their effectiveness and say wants to expand over to some other customers, or wants to show their customer like a GM that we're hitting all of our metrics. I mean, if you can pull it up on the blockchain, say we have 100% guarantee, we're not just blowing smoke, we're not just talking. Here it is in real time. We're hitting the numbers. We're doing what we're supposed to do. There's no refuting it. It's to me, it's the no-brainer way of really communicating your strength and what you're able to do. So it's a bit of a specific example, but there's a lot of things like that. Like say pharmaceutical as an example. You have to be super accurate with everything in pharmaceutical reporting, dosing, mixing. Everything has to be just down to such. It's 99 point what's a thousand or 999, so thousandths or whatever it is. You have to be so finite in pharmaceutical. What if you can prove that? If you're getting sued for something, you can go check, pull up this publicly recorded blockchain and show, yes, this is exactly what I produced. This is exactly the numbers I hit. And there's no refuting it. You cannot refute it.
Mm-hmm. And to be clear, when we say publicly, it's as public as you want this blockchain to be. And we're just talking about the technology behind it. And it is very exciting what blockchain has. And that's just a portion of Web3. Now, this week, I know it's been in the news quite a bit. I know we've linked a few articles on our LinkedIn regarding this. It is AI. It's everywhere right now in the news. NVIDIA is off the charts right now, and for good reason. But the one thing that got me really excited, and it's not the NVIDIA piece that I'm sure everyone's talking about. And when I say that, I mean NVIDIA talking about their generative AI capabilities, their hardware capabilities, all the orders that they have for their new AI supercomputers around the world. What I'm more excited about is the Google partnerships that we're seeing come up. I believe that you linked one about the New York Times.
Yeah, it's so Google's gone out and done a deal with New York Times. Now, it's not necessarily specific to the AI Web3 industry, but I think there's consequences, or that's what they're thinking about right now. Because again, like you said, everybody's on AI right now. But basically, the high level of it is there's $100 million deal on the table, which I think has all gone through now. But Google's paid, basically bought access to the New York Times so they can put New York Times content material on their various services. Yeah, Google News, and they have some other services but in the Google ecosystem. So you look at that and first, okay, great. I mean, when I open my Google, I can read New York Times stuff. Okay, good. But what's really going on? Like, think about what the New York Times offers. So it's, a humongous amount of very well-written news articles and reports and opinion pieces. So you have like, the skills of the journalist, but you also have a countless examples of how to take a complex issue or idea and then distill it down into, 20 paragraphs or whatever that specific piece is. But how do you take a lot of information and easily and simply and concisely communicate it to someone? So that's awfully valuable if you have an AI model you're trying to train, or you're trying to build up a knowledge base.
Yeah, because in all, like, if we're going to distill what an AI is right now, like ChatGPT, the most famous chatbot that everyone's used to right now, it's scraping data from a specific timeline. I know ChatGPT 4 is out there, so now it can access the web and everything for public accounts like the ones that we have. But it's taking data that it already has and then putting it together and regurgitating it. So essentially a plagiarism machine. What, in my mind, like, what better tool than the writing skill at the New York Times? And New York Times is pretty much the de facto news source around the world. Like, they have the biggest budgets, they have the most skilled writers. Everyone wants to work at the New York Times, have an article in the New York Times. Like, that is the de facto news of the world right now. Like, who knows what it will be forever. But if you have all that skill and now you have access to all that skill, now Google, I believe, is also sharing data back and forth with the New York Times on what type of ads work, what subscriptions work, things like that. If you're looking to train your tool and if you're looking to train your AI, what better than to have something that actually sounds like a person? Like, there are services out there right now. Like, I know you see in the news, like, all these college professors are fed up because all their articles by their students are getting written by AI and ChatGPT. Well, you can literally just copy a paragraph, put it into ChatGPT and said, hey, did you write this? And if it's copied verbatim, ChatGPT is just a memory bank. Like, it will remember if it wrote it or not. And yes. And then there are other website services as well that you can use. Like, did an AI write this? Going one step further, there's a service out there that a couple colleges are actually using right now to see if they're using AI, because it just goes and scrapes the different AI writing tools and asks, did you write this? Did you write this? And it comes back with a probability. What probability is this written by AI?
Yeah.
Well, it's not perfect. It's a lot better than, if you're plagiarizing the interior plagiarism tools that universities have.
So obviously, if you're a professor and you have a bunch of students, you're pretty concerned about that. But what if, like, Eric, in your business, would you be comfortable? How would you feel about a New York Times journalist writing blogs for you on whatever topic you want, on something Web3 related? How would you feel about that?
It would be amazing. Now, I don't know if any of you have had the actual pleasure of writing any copy for a new product or service that your company or that you have created and you're going to start offering, but it can be difficult at times. And one of the hardest parts is actually getting going and what ideas and what your customers are actually looking for. And talking, we'll touch on this a little bit later, but talking on what you can actually use the tools that are available right now in Web3 in your business today. This is one of the best things, and it's idea generation. Like, the models that are out there freely available, even if you don't want to pay the $20-$30 a month for a subscription, freely available today, will give you an amazing starting point on what your customers are actually looking for. How about yourself, Alec? What do you see?
Well, that's exactly it. It's how do you, there's a couple challenges around content in general, especially now in the AI age, which is like the last 8 months or something, really. but it's the amount of content that's getting pushed out is overwhelming, I think, because it's just so easy to produce it now. But you kind of have there's a lot of other little use cases to it, because there's a lot of communication. Like say, for example, you are preparing some kind of like a case study or something like that. Somebody who is in kind of like a kickstarting role, say like honestly, an account manager is a great example of this, and you need to produce some technically oriented content. You need a lot of help from a lot of people to pull all this together, technical folks and so on. If you can go out there and produce something, here's an article at 3-4 paragraphs long. I've got the foundation in there, the basics. We're covering all the points you need. It's something that's been kind of produced. A lot easier to get somebody to come in and help you fill in technical details, maybe add a customer quote or whatever. So that's a great use case right there for AI. It's a Kickstarter. It's a kickstarting tool. And, we've helped businesses with that already. It's like, how do we very quickly get AI deployed into our company? It's like, well, let's start putting out some content for you. Let's start writing something for you and using AI as that foundation. And you can't take that and just publish it, obviously. But you can use it as a conversation piece, and you can start contributing to it, and you can craft it into something that's actually a valuable piece of content.
I actually have a great example on that, Aleck. I was talking to another enterprise sales rep at an organization, and he took on this new account that he did not know very much about. And he got asked to join a call. No problem. Classic move of an enterprise sales rep. Of course, I'll take the call. But he only had half an hour before the call was happening. So he needed to know the pain points of that customer's business immediately, just to dig into it. Because once you have a customer on the phone, you have to maximize every second of that and continually move that process forward. So went to ChatGPT, give me the top 10 pain points of this distribution network. Went in there, wrote them all down. You can actually ask ChatGPT to go in detail. Meaning, what do you mean about point 3? What do you mean about point 4? And they will go more in detail. So you can ask those pain points to your customer if you don't know where to go. And that's one aspect of AI that's really good. It's the idea generation piece.
It's almost like a wingman in a lot of ways too. Exactly. Yeah, it's like when you're on a call, it's like sometimes you have to be pretty fluid. You might be especially in industrials, you're kind of dealing with like everyone is different. Every business is different. Even if they're producing the same thing, the way they do it, their process, everything's different. So if you have, and if you're flying solo on a lot of these calls, or you're just coming in fresh like that gentleman was, is there, I guess the question I'm getting to is, do you see there being an ethical dilemma of someone using that, or is that just another tool, no different than going to Google and typing in, punching their question into Google and skimming through to find an answer? Is there any difference?
I don't see there being an ethical dilemma at all in this. Like this right now, what you're asking is idea generation, and you're just asking prompts right now to ChatGPT. You have to know what the prompts are. And one job that we're going to see coming up in the next year, that's already a job right now, is a prompt engineer. Something to know what to actually ask AI and how to ask AI to do things for you in a specific way. Because go out and download ChatGPT if you haven't already, and try to ask it to do things, and look at the first couple options that do come out of it before you've trained it and before you've learned how to actually get the answers that you like. It is not that fluid.
One of the other use cases we've seen come up quite a bit is how do we take our existing processes, and most companies have at least some idea. You may not have a document, but you have a pretty good idea of generally what processes are. How can we go through these specific processes and find areas where we could take something like a ChatGPT or another AI model or various AI tools, implement them and start to improve that process? And of course, there's a lot of things to look at. Like, it's not as simple as just, how do I take ChatGPT and start generating text? It's like, well, what are you putting into ChatGPT? Is it IP? Is it protected? Is it trade secrets? Like, there's a lot of little questions that you have to ask around what's actually going in. So it's not it's a simple in theory, but in practice you have all the factors in business that you have to consider before you start doing something like that. So how do you see that, Eric? Like from and you've been doing this, so it's probably a good guy to ask. How do companies approach that, and what are some strategies?
Well, we're using ChatGPT as an example because ChatGPT is something that is free or very inexpensively subscription based that everyone has access to. But a trade-off to that is you are now training ChatGPT for every model going forward. But their artificial intelligence itself, there are other services that are out there that we can implement on your own private AI for your business.
Yeah, the biggest challenge with any of these systems is the exposure of your company's private data. So one of the pieces we focus on a lot is how do you separate the actual process, the actual application, the AI tool or application. How do you separate that from what you're putting into it, or how do you isolate it and protect it so it's not going off into OpenAI's cloud or Google's cloud or whoever? So how do you actually keep that isolated? And there's a lot of products and services that we employ for that. It really just comes down to what your specific use case is and really what type of data you're trying to pull in. And there's a lot of little factors, a lot of business factors that you have to consider.
So one thing that we would employ you after listening to this episode is go task one of your departments to download ChatGPT and see how they can actually implement it into their workflow. Now, make sure, huge caveat, no customer information, none of your IP in there, nothing, like absolutely not. And just see what they come up with, because you would be amazed at the use cases that individual departments are actually going to come up.
And you might be surprised that when you ask your employees to do that, they might say, "Oh, I'm already doing that." It's like, okay, great. That makes it easier. So I think really, if we're just as we're in our closing statements, don't be afraid of what this technology is. Don't look at it as some kind of, even though it is a plagiarism machine, but look at ways, how can you use that to your benefit, and how do you use that to your employees' benefit? How do you get them more productive, handling more tasks, taking more on? Because these tools, they're going to help them do that.
So join us again every week where we're going to go through things that are actually happening in the market and how you as a CTO, CIO, CEO, business owner, account manager, developer, anyone can actually implement the tools that are available to you today and how you can actually bring it to the next level. We'll also go in and explore where we see the market actually going and the opportunity that you have to develop your own IP in this space in order to get that competitive edge.
Thanks again for joining us on the Future Web3 podcast. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. We've got lots more coming in the following weeks, lots of content on Web3, and we'll be talking about all these interesting technologies like AI and all the rest that are prominent right now. So talk to you soon.